Hello, welcome to the Value Scripts. I'm your host, Lonnie Carmichael. I'm my wonderful co-host, Meredith Carmichael.
Hi, babe.
Hi, Meredith. How you doing?
So great. It's been a great day.
We wanted to talk about something. This might be a little challenging for me. Our therapist actually challenged us to talk about this topic. It kind of took me by surprise because we're going to him to help put my head back together or our respective heads back together. And he's like, you know what you guys should do since you started your podcast? You should start a podcast on how to be good parents because you guys are phenomenal parents. And I dropped my jaw that he said that because I know who I am and I know what I've done. And to have a third party actually still tell me that I'm a good father, it was nice, but it was a surprise. But we have been disciplined about the way we raised our kids. We've been intentional about a few things in particular. So we thought with his motivation, we will do our best to give you some of the valuable tips that have been good for us as parents and helping to shape our children. But we, really, I guess the proof's in the pudding. We do have 7 amazing children, despite their father.
No, because of their father. You are a very good father. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like we do have abnormally phenomenal kids. They just came to us that way, grounded and good. Like, I don't know. They're just good kids. Yeah. But we certainly have done some things that I think have helped.
One of the things. Sorry, I don't mean to.
No, you're good.
One of the things I noticed when we started having children, was that I had no freaking clue what I was doing. There is no handbook that gets delivered with the stork and the baby. It's not like, hey, baby number 1, handbook, here you go, right? Like how to be a parent to this child doesn't exist. It's kind of not fair that it doesn't exist, but it doesn't exist. And we do have some guides. We have the scriptures. We have people that have written some amazing books. We have our parents. Hopefully, if they were a good source of knowledge, you have your parents. If they weren't, you have other parents that honestly, you can surround yourself with people. Like if you want to have a good family, surround yourself with people that have a good family or they have the type of family dynamic you want. It's kind of like money. You're not going to take advice from somebody you shouldn't. Look, most people actually do want to take advice from the wrong people for whatever reason. I think it's because it helps them set their expectations low. But don't take advice from people that aren't where you want to be. Like if you want advice on parenting, go to people that you feel like are good parents. If you want advice on money, go to people that you feel like have been successful and have done things. Don't go to your parents if they're not those people. Don't go to your family or your friends. That's like the worst place to go. And that's one thing. Oh, I forgot to talk about that on that cleanup episode where we were talking about marriage. Like when marriage is hard. Sorry, it was a tangent. I'm like tangent man. But if you're gonna have an emotionally charged conversation, you remember we talked about that, and we're like, and it's hard for you to talk about it together. Go to a third party. That does not mean go to one of your friends, because one of your friends is gonna be biased. And one of your friends is going to take sides. One of your friends is going to help you triangulate yourself against your spouse. That is not going to be helpful. What I meant by go to a third party is go to a trusted, neutral third party, such as a counselor, a therapist, perhaps a religious leader, if they're so trained to handle such conversations. But if they're not, don't go to them for that. Don't put that much pressure on them. Don't expect them to do something they're not. That puts everybody in a bad situation, including them. Don't do that. It happens too much. But not to say you can't go to your priest or your religious leader and say, hey, we need help. This is what I'm struggling with. Help me find that help. And hopefully they have the resources to help you find that help. But don't go to a friend. Because that, like if I bring one of my friends in to help me argue with my wife, that's just stacking the deck in my favor. That's not going to be helpful for me resolving the conflict with my wife. It's going to be helpful me steamrolling my wife and me, getting my way. And if she does the same thing, then I'm going to feel marginalized and like it wasn't fair for me. Don't do that. Go to a mutual third party, neutral third party. Do you want to comment on that, man?
Perfect. No, I think that's good. And I think I think you're exactly right, because it does create a bias, and it makes your spouse feel like, I don't know, like, was the whole story presented in an accurate way, or was it told biasly? And you want to feel like, I don't know, you want to just have that be a good foundation to be able to work through your conflict. And if you start out with that dynamic, it's, you're already starting off on a bad foot.
Right. And, and don't do that virtually either. Don't enter an argument with the husband and say, well, my sister said that you should be thinking of it this way, or my mom says that I'm right. Well, go talk to them then. You're trying to work on a relationship with your mom and your sister at that point. You are not trying to work on a relationship with your spouse. So don't triangulate people against your spouse. That's not a healthy strategy.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right. Good. Moving back into parenting. All right. So, but it's all relevant, because if the parental unit is not healthy, it's going to be hard for you to be good parents, which my kids can tell you over the last couple of years, I've been less of a father than I should have been. And it's just the truth. And I can't take that back. But what I can do is move forward. And I can move forward being as healthy as possible. And that means getting rid of some of the baggage and all the other stuff, and getting as healthy as possible. And also getting as in sync with my spouse as possible, so that we can have a healthy relationship dynamic, so that we're not the weak link in the home. And when we're not the weak link in the home, we can be a source of strength for the rest of the home. So really, that's step number one, is you need to have a healthy relationship dynamic with your spouse.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Everything's dependent upon that. Just is.
So as we started having kids, and me being like panicked and also a micromanager and a perfectionist, which might be hard for people on the outside looking in to think I'm a perfectionist, but anyway, I kind of am. And so I started analyzing members of my family that I thought had good outcomes in their children. And I went to my cousin and my uncle Dave and Aunt Leanne's family, my cousin Jaron. Went to Jaron and I said, Jaron, what did your parents do right? Because I think they did a lot of things right. And it seems on, the outcomes, as far as, your siblings have seemingly have fairly healthy relationship dynamics, which, anyway, we'll just move forward there. But anyway, Jaron said, look, my parents did a lot of things, but if I can boil it down to a couple things that I know they did right and worked every time, he's like, it all comes down to this book. It's 3 Steps to a Strong Family. This is the old book by Linda and Richard Eyre. I don't know which camera, Vanna White style. There we go. And this was written in the 90s. And then there's a newer book they wrote called The Entitlement Trap. And our children have helped us mark this. It's a lovely artwork here. There's the kids help a lot, but we love these books. We love the content of these books. Essentially, it's kind of the same message.
And the Eyres have a lot of parenting books that are, they're phenomenal. They're so good. I always recommend that when I have friends ask, about parenting stuff. Those are really good. The Entitlement Trap is basically setting up a family economy where your children are earning money, and you kind of figure out what their basic needs are, like income wise, like how much does it cost to have this child function in a month, right?
But that's not like just what they want to earn. It's like, okay, how much are you going to spend on this child anyway in the month? Like school clothes, food for school, entertainment. How much are you going to naturally spend on entertainment on this child? How much are you naturally spend on this child for like fast food or extras? How much are the necessities? You got to figure that out. You're already spending the money. It's not about spending additional money to pay them. It's about using the money you're already spending, and you're finding a way for them to earn it themselves. Now, you're still going to be writing the checks and paying the bills, but you're giving the way to shift that
ownership
of that to your children, right? So instead of you buying them shoes, it's your money still, but they bought themselves shoes with the money of yours they earned.
Right. And you keep track of it. The way we did it is I bought fake checkbooks.
Which was really hard to do.
It was hard to do because you can't have it. Yeah.
Because it makes you we don't issue blank checks. Like, well, we're like, we don't want to count numbers or odding numbers. We don't want them to be real checks.
Attached to an account. We just I wanted their names on it. Everything else blank. Anyway, but I finally was able to do that. able to do that. But so we would keep track of how much money was in the kids' account by like they would earn money, and so we would add that into their balance, and then when they wanted to spend money, we would take that away, and it was.
We would also set up a limit, so 10% went to tithing right off the bat, 40% went to savings. Or 50, we put 50%. We were hardcore.
Yeah.
We made our kids save 50%. So this is all.
Where is all this?
So you're writing this in a notebook. Essentially, it's Monopoly money.
God.
Essentially, it's Monopoly money,
Gotcha.
right? But you're giving them ownership of that, right? So it's they're entitled to this money. Title might not be the right word, but they earned it themselves. Mm-hmm. So out of the money they earned, they have $100. Out of that, $50 goes into the savings account on the checkbook or in your ledger. 50% of that, or 40% of that's going to go into the checking, and 10% into tithing. And that's how we did it. And so that way, of that $40, they can kind of choose to spend that $40 wherever they want. Now, if they want to buy shoes with it, great. And I guarantee you, they will take way better care of those shoes than they take of the shoes.
It was their money.
You buy it because it's their money.
Yeah.
They earned it. They worked for it.
Yeah.
And again, you're taking money that you would have spent already on them and finding a way for them to have ownership in that and for it to really be kind of theirs. And then the savings account actually is theirs, but it's still your money that you're putting in there.
Now, are they earning these things through like chores, grades, stuff like that?
Exactly.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And it's so important that they earn it. It's not an allowance. You're not just giving.
It's not a child welfare program.
Right. Because that's not beneficial at all. But one of the greatest things, like our family would go to dinner at Cracker Barrel, and our kids would always want
Andy's mints
every time. Well, once we started doing this, and it was like, okay, yeah, you can totally have that. Here's how much they cost. And then all of a sudden they're like,
write us a check, guys. Write us a check for the mints.
I don't really want that anymore. They self-regulate, and it's beautiful because you're not the bad guy that's telling them no all the time. Like they learn that, maybe I don't want that as much as I thought I did.
Like most recently, Brecken wanted a custom pair of Jordans. Like he wanted a customized pair of Jordans. We're like, sure, you're buying it. And he did.
That's awesome.
He earned the money. He worked hard. And so let's go over how do we give them the opportunity to earn? Because, child labor laws, they can't really have a job. They can't really be on payroll except in a family farm, which we do have. So can't bust us on that either. Anyway.
So you got to be willing to kind of be fluid with this because it does take a while to work out the details. But like I went through and I tried to give a dollar amount to certain chores, like
sweeping the porch is $2.
Right.
Sweeping
the porch, washing windows, like cleaning the bathroom, whatever, there's a million household tasks that everybody has.
It's like an incentive program.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's just giving them ownership of their life and helping them understand that the more they contribute, the more benefit they're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Which in turn is only going to help them later down the road.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you're starting them early.
Yeah. You're starting them early on saving, starting early on earning and budgeting.
Yeah.
And having ownership in all those things.
Which I wish they would teach that in schools.
Why don't they teach that in schools?
Life skills. Like,
Yes.
why don't we teach life skills?
There's so many things.
The evolution of the transvestite instead. It's so much more important.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Serving everyone.
It's things that I look back on where I'm like, God, like the things I wish I would have learned before getting out of high school or college.
We had a free enterprise class in our high school. It was required.
Oh, really?
We had to take it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was required. And I don't think they do that anymore.
No, in fact, I don't think I took that.
We only went to one. It was only once. The other semester was government, and then the second semester was free enterprise. But it was phenomenal.
I mean, so I did BPA, which was Business Professionals of America.
Yeah.
And it was just basically learning how to build a business, but that was optional. Like that wasn't a requirement. So it's like, I don't see a lot of kids just raising their hand wanting to,
learn about business. Right. Yeah.
I think these things should be a requirement in school. Like, it'd help them so much because I felt like when I got out into the real world, when I got out into the real world, thank God for the parents that I had that raised me right. But it's a lot bigger than you think it is when you get out there.
But again, Justin, thanks for bringing that up because your kids are not going to learn this if you don't teach them.
Yeah.
And then when they go and graduate into adulthood, they're going to flounder. And it's going to largely be your ownership in that because you didn't teach them.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to start thinking of these things. What life skills you want to make sure your kids have, and figure out a way to instill those in them now. Right. So the family economy was one of them. There was a family justice system, and that was awesome because the family justice system, the kids self-regulate themselves, you know? So we sat them down and we're like, okay, we presented a couple different options of how to have discipline in the home and what rules they wanted to have. And the kids came up with their own house rules. And then we had the kids come up with their punishments for breaking their own house rules. So that way, like when it was like, hey, I don't know, you told your mother no defiantly. And on this paper, you guys decided that when you say no, that means we get to tell you no next time you get a privilege. That's what you guys decided. So if you want to watch the movie tonight, since you told your mom no, I'm not going to clean my room. Sorry, you don't get to watch the movie. You guys decided that. All of a sudden, all the emotions out of it's like, I can't
argue that.
Right. I mean, and they came up with that, and it was empowering. And there's no real rigid rule on how to do that. No. But what?
I asked her if she came up with that.
Oh, she was there. She was a little younger when we did that.
Oh,
okay. But we're still, we were really great at this for a while. And then, you know, again, I destabilized some things. And so the husband, wife, the parental units were not totally intact. And so this kind of fell apart. So we're just coming back to this. We realized it was good, and we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're coming back to these things that are good. And that's one of the reasons why we're speaking to them, is not only to help you guys, but help reinforce ourselves.
Yeah. And when your kids have a part in all of these things, it helps them to have a sense of pride in what they're doing. And it's not that mom and dad are making me do these things, but like, hey, this is so awesome. I earn my own money. Or this is so awesome. I get to help my family make rules. Like, you know, it helps them to feel heard and valued, and rather than it's just my parents that are enforcing everything, like they have a say in that, and that helps to regulate everything.
Totally. I had a teacher in school that had us, like the first day of school, she had us come up with our classroom rules. And that was so powerful because we were harder on ourselves than she would have been, I think. Yeah. Wow. You know, but it was kind of funny. And
That's
then like,
smart.
Right. But then like, she's like, okay, these are the rules for the year.
So is that where you learned it?
No, I mean, sure. that was modeled when I was in 4th grade. But this book helped us really. There's Domino's, baby. Are you sure you don't want some Domino's? Domino's guy just got here. Speaking to the evidence of these things, our 19-year-old just ordered herself a pizza, and it's here. Yep. But the third step here in this book, the 3 steps, is to have a family roots experience, and that is where you help your children learn amazing things about their ancestors that they can use tactically in their life, like your grandma, your great grandma Meredith. You want to speak to like what happened with her when?
So, it was my great grandma Williams.
Macy found this on, she was doing genealogy. Mm-hmm. Was she on Family Search, or I can't remember where she found it, but she found her journal where she wrote about this. Okay.
So I'm thinking of different. So you go ahead and tell it, 'cause I think we're thinking of different things.
I don't think so, but okay. It was when, it was the day her husband went up on a roof and something happened and he died. Mm-hmm. Did he fall off the roof? Mm-hmm.
Really?
Fell off the roof and he died. And she all of a suddenly was a single mom with no means of income and a bunch of brokenhearted children, and she had a broken heart herself.
Do you happen to know how old she was at that time?
She was, I want to say like between 35 and 40. I don't know that for sure.
I think that's right.
But I think that's.
Okay. And so what did she do?
It. And so she went to school. She became a school teacher, and she raised her children. I was just trying to think if there's 5 or 6. Do they have 5 or 6 children?
I would love to help you, but it's your family.
Well, I know. I would have to. It'll take me anyway.
I know the ones I know, but okay. Anyway,
it doesn't matter.
If that's not the ultimate, life comes at you fast,
bro. Oh yeah,
bro. But Macy was like, hey, like we were actually gone. It was like a Sunday night. I think we were at a church meeting. We come home. Macy's like reading through her great grandma's journal. Mm-hmm. Great grandma's journal.
Her great
grandmother's journal. Wow. And somebody who she actually took a picture with when she was a baby. And she was able to link that strength from her great grandmother straight through to her of, my grandma can do this. I can do hard things, right? If my grandma can do this, I can do algebra tomorrow, or I can face whatever mountain I got in front of me as, you know, a 12-year-old girl. And that gave her a lot of strength, and a lot of power. And it was really great because it wasn't like somebody else's amorphous like person. This was your actual great grandmother. Her blood and DNA runs through your veins.
Yeah. And that's powerful for anybody to relate to that and feel that. And it just helps to give you a sense of self and your roots and where you came from. And I don't know, I think everybody can find stories like that in their family history.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, you have pictures when you were a baby. London's over here in the corner. London's now 10, but when she was a baby, we were able to get her to go up and meet her great aunt Twyla. It was my great aunt Twyla, and she was 94 years old.
Phenomenal.
Just
woman.
one of the greatest examples of a human being I've ever met in my life. And she had polio when she was 6. And when she was 6 years old, she lived in Taylor, Arizona. She contracted polio. They sent kids down to Phoenix to be treated, but they were in the hospital for a few months alone. The parents didn't come. The kids came alone, and they went to the hospital and were there alone. And then as they were healing out after the hospital stage, they were stuck with host families, or placed with host families until they were well enough to go back home.
Imagine a kid in a random hospital with polio
at 6 years old.
Right.
Man,
traumatic.
Totally alone.
Yeah.
Right. And then I asked her, I was like, man, Twyla, what would you want our kids to know about you the most? Like, you have some amazing stories from your life, right? And I love that we have that family history and we're able to like use that as strength. She goes, I would love for them to know, like, here's another thing. When was she 2 or 4?
She was,
when her mom died. It was 6, 4, and 2. The girls were 6, 4, and 2. I can't remember which one she was. Was she the youngest? So she was 2.
I think she was 2.
She was 2 years old. Her mom died. And her dad married the epitome of the wicked stepmother. And they came home from school one day to this woman burning every last memento of their mother.
A trunk. They had a trunk.
With all the mementos, pictures, mom's things, jewelry, heirlooms, clothing. And this woman was... Way to mic drop there, buddy. I just dropped
the mic.
Justin just mic dropped.
Jesus.
It's all good.
That's how wicked that stepmother was. He had to mic drop that moment. But they came home to her from after school, burning the only tangible evidence of their mother.
Is she still here?
My Aunt Twyla?
Yeah.
No, she passed a couple years ago.
The lady that was burning the...
No, she was older.
Oh, yeah. She entered the room.
Oh,
she heard
she was like, whoosh, are you telling this story?
No, she was. She truly was horrible. And Aunt Twyla was like so sweet. She was like, it must have been incredibly hard for her to come and deal with 3 brokenhearted little girls and she didn't know how to be a mom. Like, she was just so empathetic and kind.
So,
the whole strength thing that you guys were saying, like with the journal, like I used that for myself with my mom, because my mom lost her first fiance on his bike. He got hit by a drunk driver. Oh, wow. And then she lost both her mom and dad within 8 months of each other. Oh, man. And she still came out on the other side an amazing mom.
It's powerful.
So I always look back on that. Like, whenever I'm going through something, every time I'm going through something, I think about my mom and I'm like, she was able to do that.
Yeah.
I can get through whatever I'm getting through.
Yeah. It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And it's personal to you, right? It's like, because it's your mom. It's tangible. Yeah. Like our therapist, he's like, a lot of people like to say, what would Jesus do? Right? Jesus is the ideal, right? What would Jesus do? You know what? It's a really nice thing to think. It's a really nice thing to say. But the reality is Jesus was a perfect man. That's not really relatable. Like, what Jesus would do in this moment has really nothing to do with what I'm going to do here, because I'm not perfect. No. I am not Jesus. So what Jesus would do in this situation, I might not be able to do, but what my mom did, what my great aunt did, what my dad did, I can do that. Right. So
because those are personal things to you.
Yeah, exactly. So he's encouraged me to pick a hero of my own ancestry to look towards, rather than be it so far removed than Jesus, but what did Sir John Carmichael do? How would he conduct himself?
What a cool name.
Right? Oh, that's a real deal.
Sir John.
Awesome. Sir John Carmichael.
Oh, that's a good story. We'll have to
1420 AD. We're going to fire up on that. But yeah, no, I mean, well, I don't know. We're here. Here we go. So Sir John Carmichael was knighted in France because he
awesome.
He left his lands in Scotland. He went to go fight the invading English army with the French because he believed in their cause. He believed in the cause of what was right. And the story goes that Sir John broke his lance, defeating the advancing English army's commander. So he was in a joust with the English army's commanding officer. And I believe his horse had been killed. He was on the ground. He lifted his lance at the last second and de-seated the advancing army's commander.
Wow.
He perished in the moment. Sir John survived, broke his lance in the process. And so our family crest, which I can send you, you can post there, has an iron fist with a broken lance in it. And like, to me, it's like,
that's awesome.
That's that DNA, that blood runs through my veins. And that helps me do hard things. And when Joan of Arc came to Scotland and her army came through there, he received her and he, took care of them for a night and nourished them and fed them. And he walked with Joan of Arc, my ancestor.
Think of how long ago that was, and it still resonates.
Man, it's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
So that's the strength of the family roots, not to get too far into that, but but I appreciate you sharing your story about your mom. It's powerful when it's close to home, right?
Yeah. But still, like I'm just can't get over the 1420. Yeah. 1420 AD and it's still resonating. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So family roots, it's a powerful tool. Like, a lot of times the inner city children, they resonate with gangs because they don't have family roots and they don't have a family even, right? But even in those broken situations, like you can go back to the heroes, near to your own family and have that be heroes for your children. Mm-hmm. And it's a powerful thing. So we really endorse these books by Linda and Richard Iyer, 3 Steps of a Strong Family, The Entitlement Trap. They really helped us probably more than any other books that we've read on parenting.
Yeah.
And then a couple other things that we have done is we made it a point to never fight in front of our kids, at least not to be in disharmony. That was something that even if we don't agree with each other in front of the kids, we don't hash that out. If we need to have a timeout and go to a quiet area where we can rediscuss things, we do that. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, I think that's so important. Like, I remember when Macy was little, we were discussing something. We weren't even fighting, but like we were talking about something, and I dropped the blender, and Macy like burst into tears. Like she thought, I don't know, like she thought things were bad, like, and it just helped us realize like how scary it can be for children.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we realized how scary that would be for children that grow up where their parents are fighting all the time. That's traumatic. And you don't want that to become their normal so that they grow up and provide that, in their own homes.
Kid see, kid do.
I don't know, but that's accurate.
But yeah.
Because, you're programming, from birth to about 6 to 7 years old, you're programming your baseline subconscious brain. Yeah. And if it's chaotic, if it's in an environment where your parents are fighting all the time, it's an environment where somebody's an alcoholic or there's whatever going on, that is going to be programmed, hardwired into that kid's brain as normal.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or not, we're not saying. That's just going to be what feels normal to them. So anything outside of normal is going to feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So a normal, healthy relationship is not going to feel comfortable because they were programmed as, in their formative brain years to get used to chaos. And we see the effects of that all the time.
Yeah. Well, the saying you're a product of your environment.
Absolutely.
But, like if you're a product of your environment at an older age, you have the tools to work around that or to better yourself within that environment. I think at a younger age, like you're saying 6 or 7, you don't know the tools.
Right.
You don't know how to, just assume this is your environment.
Which is, I think, probably a great segue to talk about kids self-soothing. Right? You were talking about earlier.
Yeah, well, so lots of times when we look at kids that are misbehaving, like you might think, oh, they're throwing a tantrum, they're acting out, they're, whatever the case may be. But lots of times, like, there might be an outside environmental thing that's causing them to be upset. Like, maybe they're super tired, maybe they're hungry, maybe they feel like they're not being heard, like nobody's listening to them, whatever the case may be. So it's important to think about those things first when you're trying to decide, why is my kid acting out? Why are they misbehaving? But also when your child is acting in a way that, I don't know, they're super emotional and crying or whatever, it's important to teach them how to regulate their emotions.
So like you throw them in the room and say, don't come out until you quit crying.
Right. Yeah. No, that doesn't.
Is that how you help them regulate their emotions?
There was a really, really good post. Yeah.
While you're looking for that post, I'll tell this quick story.
Yeah.
I got angry when I was a kid, like 10 years old, slammed my door. My dad said, if you slam that door again, I'm taking it off the hinges. I slammed the door again and he took it off the hinges and I go, oh, sweet. I don't have to close or open my door anymore. It was just easy access. And they told me this later, but I guess my dad was holding the door and he's like behind looking at my mom. He goes, what do I do?
So funny.
So did you find your quote?
I did.
Go for it.
So this is Marcella Collier. She's a parenting coach. She said, parents, telling your child, go to your room and don't come out until you're calm. It's like if you put me in a plane and tell me not to come out until I know how to fly it. Children don't learn emotional regulation by themselves. That's so, so good, because oftentimes we expect our kids to just understand, like, you're acting inappropriate, you need to calm down. Well, how do they do that?
How do they even know what that means?
How do they calm down? Like, right.
How do they know inappropriate means?
And right, how do they know that they're acting out? They're just trying to be heard and understood.
They were yelling and making an outburst, and then you made an outburst to correct them.
Right.
How confusing is that to that kid? Like, oh, I was just doing what you just did. No, you did it, and I'm in trouble for it.
Right. Yeah. It just doesn't work.
Now, this is I don't know if you call it a controversial topic, but like spanking your kids. It's like a big no-no now, like in social media or like in the public's eye or whoever wants to talk about it. How are you guys with like?
So I had one experience with that. I grew up that way.
I grew up that way.
I grew up getting the belt until I one day reached back and grabbed that belt.
Yeah. Yeah. I got the wooden spoon. I got the belt.
I loved the wooden spoon. My mom, so the wooden spoon was an improvement to the belt. Mom, you're going to learn a little secret right here as you listen to this. But when you hit me with that wooden spoon, I was like, ooh, that really didn't hurt. But I need to make sure she thinks it did, so that's the punishment I always get. So I was like, whoa.
You have to sell it.
So then she'd be like, oh, you're going to have to go get the wooden spoon. I'd be like, okay.
It's a terrifying walk.
Way better than the belt.
Oh, yeah.
Way better than the belt. So here's the so when Macy, I don't know, 18 months old, 2 years, she was right around.
Like 2.5, I think.
2.5. Well, that sounds way better than what I was going to say. Yeah. All right. She's 2.5 and she was acting like a total freaking spoiled brat. And I was like, Meredith, what do I do? And she's like, well, this is the point where you spank her. And I was like, how do I do that? This is my beautiful little perfect girl. Like, how do I spank her? Like, she's got these beautiful curls, big chubby cheeks. She's so cute. She's acting like a brat, but she's still so cute. How do I spank this beautiful child? So anyways, I tried to give it a whack. I just wham, gave her a little spank on the rear, and she turns around and she just looks at me straight in the eye and she goes, I was like, well, that didn't work. So in the book, The Mastery of Love by Miguel Ruiz, he gives an analogy there. And he says, look, if your 2-year-old runs through the room and just, is running through the room with her blanket as a cape, and the cape just, as she's flying through the room, hits the brand new lamp, knocks it over and shatters it on the floor. And you yell, hey, you need to watch what you're doing. You need to be more careful. That kid's going to turn around and understand one thing. 2 things. Her dad is scary, and her dad can hurt her. That 2-year-old is not going to understand what she just did. She's not going to understand that she broke the lamp. She's not going to understand that she was running and the cape and the wind and the currents and it went over and it draped and grabbed and pulled the lamp off the table and threw it onto the floor and shattered it. She's not going to understand that. What she's going to learn from that moment is her dad can hurt her and her dad is scary. And so that, as I read that, I just...
So she learned it was scary, but not why it was scary.
Not why it was scary. Well, gotcha. And should it be scary to be disciplined by your parents?
No.
I mean, maybe there needs to be a level of respect there, but it doesn't need to be an intimidating, abusive relationship. Yeah, and so that was the last time I ever spanked anybody ever again.
The only reason why I brought that up is because I feel like we grew up in...
Spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yeah, there was a very long span of this is the way you raised your kids. And I feel like you guys are coming into a new time of raising kids. So that's why I was kind of just like asking the question, like, as it evolves.
Yeah. So going back to the justice system, the part of the family justice system was when the kids were fighting. Okay. Mm-hmm. They came up with, and we did guide these discussions. I mean, we're talking to 12-year-olds at the oldest and younger kids. So we did guide some of the discussions, but they ultimately chose the outcomes and we wrote down and stuck with the outcomes they chose. But if you were fighting with a sibling or causing strife, or if you were intentionally trying to get that person to feel bad, then, if you were both fighting, then you both got to sit in timeout together, but separated at the same time until you were calm. It was about, I think we said 3 minutes, right? And we set the timer. And at the end of that 3 minutes, then you got to go pull weeds for 10 minutes outside. Every time. And it was just, that was the response. It was like, hey guys, you guys are fighting. You guys know the protocol. And we didn't even have to enforce that over there. You go sit on the black box. We start the timer. We'll pull weeds.
And part of that too was like, they had to talk to each other. Like, this is why I'm upset. Okay. This is why I'm upset. And then we would kind of guide them as to,
well, they had to calm down first. They had to have the cool down period first, right? This is at the end of the
3 minutes.
Right.
So then, and while they were sitting there, like, hey, think about what you want to talk about, so it gives them time to really think about and go over, what happened, and then talk about why they're upset so that they have a time to like feel heard. And then we would help them. What would be a good solution to that? Like, what would be a good way? Whatever. It's usually fighting over something.
It sounds like that would be way more. I mean, I'm just thinking about it in my head. If I was a kid, like how I grew up, I feel like that would be more of a learning experience and knowing not to do it. Because to me, it sounds like I'd rather get hit with the wooden spoon than pull weeds.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's way more effective.
It was pretty effective. It was pretty effective. Hey, I think we've covered a lot of great ground here. I think we should continue this on another episode. So let's cut this right here, and then we'll come right back into this. Thanks for listening to the Value Script. Don't forget to clickety-click. That means subscribe, like, and share it with people so that you can pay that value forward that you felt today, and you can pay it forward to your friends, family, and loved ones. We appreciate you listening. Next time, we'll see you on the Value Script.